Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Purpose-Driven CEO. This is our 9th episode. I'm super excited to share it with you. It's always a highlight of my week to get in here and record our newest episode. And I'm going to give a shout out this morning to my peeps over at Metro Christian High School, and in particular, my man Carson Smith. Carson is a tremendous student, athlete, and an excellent leader, and I know he has a very bright future ahead, and he reminds me of me at that age, which may or may not be a good thing, Carson, so be careful. So today we are going to talk about the battle for our mind, and I want to tell you, first of all, why I think this is so important, and then we'll jump into our teaching today. So for a purpose-driven leader, your mind has to be right first. You can't go out and lead and make a difference in the world if, number one, you don't have things right with you, if things aren't right at your home, and then you can go out into the world. So we're going to start out with making sure our mind is right today, and I want to read to you from Jesus Calling this morning, and then I'm going to jump into kind of our thoughts. As you get out of bed in the morning, be aware of my presence with you. And this is Jesus talking. You may not be thinking clearly yet, but I am. Your early morning thoughts tend to be anxious ones until you get connected with me. Invite me into your thoughts by whispering my name. Suddenly your day brightens and feels more user-friendly. You cannot dread a day that is vibrant with my presence. You gain confidence through knowing that I am with you, that you face nothing alone. Anxiety stems from asking the wrong question. If such and such happens, can I handle it? The true question is not whether you can cope with whatever happens, but whether you and Jesus together can handle anything that occurs. It is this you and I together factor that gives you confidence to face the day cheerfully. And the scripture basis for this in Jesus Calling is Psalm 5:3. In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning I lay my request before you and wait in expectation. Psalm 63:1, O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. And Philippians 4:13, I can do everything through him who gives me strength. So have you ever thought about why we feel so anxious in the morning? I have polled many people, and virtually everybody feels this way, okay? And so the question is, why? Why do we feel so anxious in the morning? And my belief is that it's because there is a battle for our mind, and it starts the moment that we wake up. I had a dream one time where and it was extremely vivid. I was laying in bed, I was asleep, and both Satan and Jesus were right there beside my bed waiting for me to wake up. And they were waiting to see who I was going to choose. Was I going to allow my mind to go directly toward the things of Satan, fear, anxiety, survival, a lot of self-centered thinking, scarcity, just concern about the day, or would I move toward Jesus, where I would focus on peace, joy, love, focusing on other people? So the important thing is we need to start the day with Jesus. And I want to give you a really good example. When my kids were little, I've always been an early morning person. So I would get up in the morning and I was sitting down in the recliner and getting ready for the day, saying my prayers, kind of, preparing for the day ahead. And the best part of my entire day is when I would hear little feet coming down the stairs. And here would come one of the kiddos. And it might be, Emery, Kennedy, or Finn. And when they would come down, the first thing they would do is they would come jump in my lap and give me a big old hug. Now, as they got older, number one, they very rarely get out of bed at the same time I am awake because they like to sleep in. But also, there are times when they will come down and maybe they're not in such a good mood. Maybe we've hit those teenage years and we're not so happy. Or, they jump on their phone. They start texting or, jumping on Instagram or Snapchat or something like that. And I do not get that hug. That is how Jesus feels when we start our day not with Him, okay? And it's extremely important that the very first thing we do is to get up early and start our day with God. My Taekwondo master, I've been doing Taekwondo for I think 5 years now. And my Taekwondo master, Master So, told me a story about how in Seoul, South Korea, there is a coffee shop downtown. And the first 3 people that come to that coffee shop every morning at 4 a.m. are the CEOs of LG, Hyundai, and Samsung. The 3 largest companies in Seoul all show up there at 4 o'clock, and it's like a competition to see who can get there first. There is beauty in mornings and starting our morning with God. I have 2 days a week when I do Taekwondo workout. So I just do a morning devotional in my recliner and grab some coffee before I head over to do Taekwondo at 5:30. But on other days, I do what I call my prayer walk. And so I don't take a phone with me. I don't take any kind of any distraction. I will just head out and I will typically kind of do a walk jog interval, but I am praying the entire time. It's 40 to 45 minutes. It's beautiful time. It's quiet. Nobody is out. You hear the birds chirping. The sun is coming up, and it's just God and I. And if you think about that, even if it's just 30 minutes a day that you do that, that's 3.5 hours a week, 14 hours a month, 168 hours per year. That's 21 full work days that you spend with God. 21 extra days a year if you just get up and spend 30 minutes with Him. I remember last year I was Commerce Secretary for Oklahoma and continuing to be CEO of the bank, and my days would just be crazy. I mean, I can't even put into words how chaotic they would be. We were trying to hustle up Tesla and get them to come to Oklahoma. COVID had hit us. We were developing a relief program. We had tons of issues with our unemployment insurance system. I mean, it was wild. And people would ask, how do you do this day in and day out? And the key is every morning I would just ask God for renewal. I would just ask Him to be with me. I would commit to trusting Him, and then I would just ask Him to renew my mind. And the amazing thing is, He will do that. He will give you tremendous capacity and energy and strength if you will just ask Him. Romans 12:1-2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." The beautiful part about a day is it's our opportunity to start over. Okay, my son Finley is very, very competitive. Okay, he's a good little athlete, and I mean, he hates to lose. He's kind of like his father. So when we play any game whatsoever, if he loses, we immediately have to do do-overs. It doesn't matter what it is. We got to play again. We start a new game. So basically, he has to win, or we never ever get to go back inside the house. Well, that's how God is with us. He allows us do-overs each and every day. Maybe you didn't get it right yesterday, but you can get it right today. I remember we played in a baseball tournament this past summer. We had a horrible day on Saturday. It was like we just did not even show up. But I told them, I'm like, guys, this is a new day. We get to start all over. Let's try it again. And we came back to win the whole tournament on Sunday. Here is my favorite story of new beginnings in the Bible. And I just think this is so important because we have to realize that, number one, we can put our trust in God, and number two, we can have new beginnings each day. In John 5, verse 1. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." This man could not heal himself. Okay, for 38 years, he's trying to get healed. For 38 years, people are cutting in front of him. He can't get down there when the angel stirs up the water. So he is feeling very, very helpless. Only Jesus could heal him, but what's the key here? He had to choose a new beginning, okay? He had to choose to get well. This is very important for you and I because we have to make a decision that we want to follow him today. When we go into this day, it's important to think about the day not as all the problems that are lying ahead of us, and we certainly don't want to visualize ourselves alone going into this day. We want to envision ourselves with Jesus, but we want to visualize the day as a spiritual scavenger hunt. This is a very, very important concept for all of us. When we go into the day, we're going to have conversations. They might feel like interruptions, but if we think of them from a spiritual perspective, what we will begin to realize is they're not interruptions at all. They are God moments. They are, my friend Tom Ritchie calls them God winks. They're times when spiritual things are happening in our lives, and if we are paying attention, that is the moment when we can change somebody else's life. Now, we have to remember to use the right scoreboard when we're thinking about our lives. And I want to kind of close with this. Steve Jobs built Apple into the most valuable company in the world at the time. I think Tesla is a little bit above them now, but for years, Apple was number one. But he died with cancer at 56 years old, and according to everything I read, he may not have known God. He may not have been saved. So the question is, what if our scoreboard is all wrong? I would encourage us to think about, as we go into the day, release the pressure valve of performance, of selling stuff, of being the best, and everything's got to be perfect. And think about it more in terms of how closely are we abiding with Jesus today. At the end of the day, if you listened, if you prayed throughout the day, I use this thank you, trust you. So throughout the day, I am always saying, thank you, God, for things that are awesome in my life, or I trust you, Jesus, for things that are challenging, or help me, Jesus, for things that are difficult. If you do that all day, I stop and pray in mid-morning, mid-afternoon, beginning, end of the day, and at lunch. So all throughout the day, I'm getting little 10-minute prayer breaks. And if we stay with him today, that is all that we can do. Now, when I was down in Brazil, I remember we do mission trips down there, and Pastor Rubens pulled several of the American missionaries, he called us, up to the front of this very large gathering and said, "These missionaries will pray for your healing now." And all these people, hundreds of people lined up down the row for me to pray for their healing. Well, I had never done that in my life. I had no faith. I thought this is going to be a big old disaster. And Pastor Rubens came up and told me one very simple thing. And he said, "Sean, it is not you doing the healing. It is Jesus healing through you." So this is the way we want to live our lives. Remember, we have the power of Jesus with us. It is not us. It is Jesus living through us today. So let's start every day with Him. Let's abide with Him all day long. Let's ask Him to renew our mind right now and live with anticipation for this spiritual scavenger hunt that is in the day ahead.